Hi everyone, welcome to the Finance Story Live, brought to you by Payzy and Startup Movers, where we decode the biggest shifts shaping the world of finance, tax, accounting, consulting, and business in general. So, if it impacts your career or your firm, we're definitely talking about it. So, today we have with us Ali, who's an ex-McKinsey consultant with a background in software engineering and the co-founder at Perceptis. So Perceptis is basically an AI tool which automates the tedious admin work for consulting firms. They have recently raised 3.6 million in funding to make this happen. So Ali, thanks a ton for joining in. So Ali, you have an amazing profile. McKinsey, Google, Amazon. Was this always part of the plan?
Well, that's a great question. Look, I think the common thing that I maintained throughout of my life from the childhood is the fact that I was always very curious about a ton of different things. I think I always had a ton of appreciation for sciences and technical subjects like math and physics, but also I always liked reading a lot of literature, studying culture, studying geography and history. And so how this transitioned into my adult life is that I think I started off my career in engineering. So to your point, early in the days, I was a software engineer writing code for Amazon and Google. But at some point, I quickly realized that, especially when you are more of a junior engineer, you usually don't have a ton of influence in terms of how the product is going to develop or what is going to be the business case or what you end up working on. And that's what pushed me to explore a career in consulting, which to me felt much closer to this kind of decision making power. And that's how I ended up at McKinsey back in 2015. And it ended up, swallowing me whole. I stayed within consulting industry for a while. I actually departed consulting only around end of the 2023.
As you mentioned, you were working with McKinsey, right? And you've been with them for over 6 years, be it in the US or in
Mhm.
Kazakhstan. So, what were your learnings in the last 6 years?
Yeah, I joined McKinsey as a generalist consultant in McKinsey's Kazakhstan office. I was maybe employee number, I don't know, maybe employee number 12 in McKinsey Kazakhstan. And I joined as a generalist consultant, as a business analyst. And from the very first days, I actually was offering technical solutions to non-technical questions. For example, I remember there was a project in which a municipality of a particular city was trying to understand what is the sentiment of the citizens toward certain issue, and the traditional consulting solution would be to send people on the streets, start polling people, start asking them questions, etc. And my solution was, can we go to just like the social networks of people who live in the city and collect all the comments that are mentioning this particular issue and do the sentiment analysis and aspect labeling with natural language processing and machine learning and kind of get to the answer in that way. And I remember that when I started at McKinsey back in 2015, the reaction of some of the senior leaders was, dude, you got to forget about your Google and Amazon magic. You got to kind of focus on the consulting work, and we don't do this stuff here. It's not a tech firm. And fast forward to 2023, when I was departing McKinsey, that completely turned around. McKinsey actually became heavily a technology firm in terms of both the topics that McKinsey is serving its clients on, as well as in terms of the tooling and advanced tooling solutions that McKinsey is using to answer the business questions. So yeah, that's been my experience. I saw the transformation of this very old company firsthand in the last 6-8 years or so.
Amazing.
Absolutely. So, maybe even just to kind of ride a little bit further on this example of, launching natural language processing analysis that I was recommending at that project that I mentioned. Eventually, and eventually a tool like that actually appeared inside McKinsey. And you no longer had to hire a third-party company to run that NLP analysis, and McKinsey was doing it in itself, right? And then, of course, and all of this is like, public data. A lot of that is written in the McKinsey article, so I'm not saying anything kind of new here. But we know that McKinsey at some point acquired something that's called Quantum Black, which was a kind of AI consultancy, if you wish, But then within McKinsey, Quantum Black has grown, I don't know, 10x, 100x, or something like that. And the capabilities in terms of like what McKinsey is capable of doing, increased tremendously, from digital twins to advanced analytics to custom machine learning models for fields as remote as mining and construction and stuff like that. So all of that is absolutely happening there. So yeah, absolutely. I have to say that to your point, consulting companies are increasingly becoming tech companies these days. But then
Okay.
one thing, just like maybe to give you a provocative question, Chantal, since I guess it's a little bit of a two-sided conversation, two-way conversation, like that tech industry, one of the key characteristics of tech industry is that the leader usually keeps the dominant position for much shorter than in other industries. I'm talking about like IBM being replaced by Microsoft, or Yahoo being displaced by Google or Facebook, kind of eventually giving way to Instagrams and TikToks of the world, and so on and so forth. Whereas McKinsey has been there for 100 years. Goldman Sachs has been a leader for, I think, like close to 80 years. And if you look about at the industry of professional services in general, the leader always, kind of maintains its leadership for a very long time. And so the question here that I have is, does it mean that as consulting becoming more and more like tech, it potentially can also inherit this trait of, the changing leadership, churning leadership at the top of the iceberg, if you wish?
We've
Mhm.
we've seen a lot of articles doing rounds, on AI killing consulting, especially management consulting. AI killing McKinsey. Why are these firms so vulnerable to AI that they're going to be totally disrupted or killed?
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So my perspective is that I have a stance on that, and it might not, be the most common one. But I think that, look, MBBs, they have some of the smartest people in the world working for them. They have very deep pockets. They have very strong reputations, despite all the scandals and all that stuff, right? They have very strong reputations with its clientele. And so to me, that means that necessarily kind of killing MBB is not going to happen easily, nor is this the objective in my view, at least for Perceptis. I know that there are some startups that are saying like we're going to kill McKinsey, etc. We are not one of them.
Yeah.
What I do think is going to happen, though, is that that the future of consulting is going to be extremely specialized and fragmented, with a lot of more nimble, more tech forward, more specialized boutique consultancies quickly gaining market share and quickly doing the land grab, and sharing the top of the pyramid with some of the elite consultancies. That I definitely foresee happening. um, Kind of in terms of obliterating consulting as the industry altogether, I don't think, my personal perspective is that AI is not going to do that anytime soon. And the reason for that is, honestly, those people who are saying that AI is becoming like this kind of super capable AGI or something like that, those are the people who have the strongest conflict of interest. So the usual suspects are Sam Altman, Elon Musk, Satya Nadella, Sundar Pichai, Mark Zuckerberg. All of them are standing to benefit from people believing that AGI is around the corner and going to arrive in 2 to 3 years, when you're just going to say, hey, give me a McKinsey grade advice on what my company should do to go and dominate the market. Um, I already see the plateau kind of already happening in the world of large language models. And we are almost out of the data that the large language models can train on. Like next year, maybe the year after, we're going to run out of all the available human data to train these models. And yes, they're talking about synthetic data, etc. But honestly, there are big questions about like hallucinations and how they're going to fight. Like to me, it's like garbage in, garbage out, to be honest. And so where I'm going is all of this is, I think AI is going to give a huge productivity unlock. And those companies, those boutique consultancies, as I mentioned before, who are tech forward, who can take advantage of this productivity gains, who can harness the power and use it in the most efficient way possible, are the ones that are going to benefit the most from it. So I guess that's my perspective.
What is Perceptis' role in this entire enabling these smaller firms into being AI powered? So, what are you guys exactly doing? What are you all building? What is the gap, and what have you all solved as of now?
So, like, if I were to put it in one sentence, what Perceptis does is it automates expensive consulting workflows using bleeding edge AI. If you are making $50 million a year within your boutique consulting company, and you want to make $100 million a year next year, you have to hire twice as many people, you have to rent twice as much office space, buy twice as many computers, etc. Right? And so the master question that we started with about 2 years ago was, can a consulting company be a bit more scalable? Can you serve 3x, 4x, 5x as many clients and therefore book 5x as much revenue without adding more headcount, without working more working hours, etc. Right? And to me, the answer is, and perhaps it could be a naive answer, but the answer is yes, you can do it if there is an AI that can automate or at least significantly augment a lot of the consulting workflows, the kind of non-value creating, non-expert driven consulting workflows. And then the question becomes like, what are then these workflows and what can you automate? And where we started and what became our flagship product in the beginning was writing consulting proposals. Like when you do what's called technically sales or business development, although consultants try to call it something else like client development or something, takes a lot of time. Like a single proposal can take anywhere between 10 to 30 to 40 hours to put together. And when you have 10 to 12 client conversations per month as a partner, it's just simply impossible to return back to every single opportunity and tell them this is what we think we can do for you. And that becomes a major bottleneck in terms of growth. And so Perceptis came in and said, look, we're going to take a 10 to 15 minutes time for you to submit a thoughtful prompt to us. And then we're also going to plug into all the knowledge that you have at your firm, your historical proposals, your knowledge libraries, your case studies libraries, the CVs of your experts, and all of that stuff. And we're going to produce a MBB grade proposal for you, given that prompt, right? And you can continue the conversation with all 10 to 12 clients that you're currently developing. So that's what kind of became our wedge into the market. But then, as you think about it further, like what is the next step? Like in the world of any consulting shop, you can basically break down into client development and project delivery side of things. And then there is also the back office component, if you wish. And then, like right now, we are focusing on this again, business development area. But proposals is only one step. There are things that are happening before the proposal writing. There are things that are happening after. And so, to us, like we're gonna own this area first. We're gonna help all these boutique consultancies first, and then we also have some forays into the project delivery, such as like slide building, doing research, like having access to every single corner of your company's knowledge, for example. So those are the types of things that we're solving for consulting companies.
So what are you exactly doing is trying to solve for firms in the range of say 15 million or 10 million or 5 million in terms of revenue who cannot invest millions of dollars but can plug in your your product and they could make amazing proposals.
Yeah, that's you nailed it. To your point, McKinsey's and BCG's, they are building their own AI tooling. McKinsey has Lily, BCG has Dexter, and they also have an army of people to to even create those proposals when AI fails, for example. The problem is, if we do believe that the future of consulting is going to be highly fragmented and specialized, which is what I think is already happening today, um, then you have to say that AI tooling that these large companies can build is going to give an edge over all the small boutiques. They're not going to be able to compete as effectively with the big firms. And so what we do is we actually trying to even out the playing field. And we don't shy away from serving larger customers, by the way. We do have consulting companies that are 700, 1,000 people strong that are using Perceptis today. But to your point, the sweet spot for us is actually those smaller boutiques who absolutely, require automation, who require some streamlining of the, soul-sucking, mind-numbing consulting work. They love being consultants. They love sharing their expertise, facing their clients, solving problems together. But all the other minuscule work, aligning freaking boxes on the slide at 1 a.m. in the morning, etc., all of that should be totally gone, right? And that's what we are solving for them.
Amazing. So so Perceptus is available right now only in the US or firms in India, firms in the UAE could plug in and use your product.
Across the globe, we are capable of producing documents in 100+ languages. So to give you some examples, like Finnish is one of languages to support, German is one of languages to support, Arabic, Japanese, a bunch of others. So technically, we are a global firm. The one thing that I have to admit is that Perceptis is not that cheap. Our standard pricing is $1,500 per seat per month. And that's what I think can make it a little bit harder for depending on kind of the average project price. And I think project price is kind of the right thing to gauge, like, how much the company would be willing to spend on proposal automation, if you wish.
When you say project or proposal building,
Mhm.
it just seems like, hey, I can just put in some data into Chat GPT and I can get a proposal, because that's what we're doing today. We can use Gamma, we can use Canva. There are different kinds of tools that's available. So what makes you guys stand out? Like, what is it that I get for $1,500? How secure is my data?
A lot of
Yeah,
great questions. So let me unpack them one by one. Let me start with the question of Gamma, ChatGPT, Beautiful AI, a bunch of other tools. Like, why would people use Perceptis? Uh, Especially given that Perceptis is 20x more expensive than our kind of
yeah,
next most expensive competitor, if you wish. So
yeah.
the way kind of I think about this is that ChatGPT is a great tool, but it's a general purpose tool, right? It's largely unaware of what makes a consulting slide a consulting slide. It might not know everything that's going on in your company. It's not that easy to plug in all of this. Like, you would need third-party tools to kind of give ChatGPT a ton of information about kind of what your company does and how it should talk about your company and so on and so forth. With Perceptis, the beauty is you tell it, I need a proposal. Well, right now, the flagship product kind of knows that you are needing a proposal anyway, but like, you give it the minimum amount of information, and as the output, you already receive a fully comprehensive document. There is a ton of fact checking that is happening, quality assurance, formatting errors fixing, etc., etc. And then when you kind of provide feedback on that proposal, what happens is there is also like a lot of inference around the best practices. With every page produced, it's kind of learns how to write these proposals more effectively and better. So that's essentially how I think about this, and the comparison to a bunch of other tools. Like, in terms of our competition in general, right? Like, I would say the closest competitor would be Copilot for PowerPoint, if you wish. And then you mentioned Gamma app, there's Beautiful AI, a few others. All of them do generate slides, but when it comes to the side-by-side comparison of the Perceptis output and a bunch of other generic tools, I don't think you can compare. And then
Okay.
the other thing that you asked about is data security, which is absolutely the big question. Privacy and data security is of paramount importance to every single one of our customers, be it an individual consultant, a small boutique, or a bigger consulting company. And so the answer to that is that we were building Perceptis. We knew that that's the case, and our data architecture is one aspect. So we are very paranoid about, like, hey, data needs to be physically separated between each customer. In fact, every customer that comes to us, we actually build a suite of custom models for every one of them, so that kind of there is no data contamination and you don't share facts. And then we also had to create a bunch of IP around data labeling protocols, because let's say you drop a bunch of data into a support vector machine. Yes, the SVM, the machine learning, right, can tell you, and then you can ask it a question. It can tell you if the data exists, but actually it doesn't tell you whether you can use this data and in what way you can use this data. So, for example, if you give a proposal that was written for AT&T and it lives somewhere in
Yep.
the background, and
Yep.
tomorrow you are asking, like, hey, like, gives me the best facts for this T-Mobile proposal, the reality might be that you're actually not allowed to share any of that data with that new T-Mobile proposal for the agent to write it. But the traditional methods of machine learning, they don't have this consulting context. They don't know where the Chinese walls needs to exist. So that's kind of, again, some of the unique features that I think Perceptis brings to the area.
Ali, what are your plans for the next, say, 2 years, 3 years? Where do you see Perceptis in the next few years? And
To answer your question, where we see Perceptis go in 3 years, or maybe a little longer than that from now, essentially we see Perceptis growing into what we call a consulting OS, consulting operating system, which basically is a suite of tightly integrated tools that just allows you to run your consultancy in a much more streamlined way. So that, again, as a consultant, you can focus only on things that only consultants can do, such as being in front of your clients, problem solving as them, being the change agent on the ground, etc. And everything else should be performed, or at least significantly augmented, by the AI agents in the background. And the vision is that Perceptis is going to be such an indispensable way of running a streamlined consulting business, that it just doesn't make sense to do it without Perceptis anymore, right? Like essentially an Iron Man suit, and if you don't have an Iron Man suit, you're basically like an archaic soldier trying to go up against an Iron Man. So that's where we're going.
Cool. So, Ali, my last question for you is, what is your message to smaller consulting firms, mid-sized firms? They should be bold enough to compete with the large firms, and that's eventually going to happen. Do you already see that happening?
Yeah,
Is
absolutely. So first thing is that if we kind of picture the industry of consulting as a pyramid, and I don't mean like partner manager pyramid, I mean like a pyramid where you have on top the elite consultancies and you have like a ton of boutique consultancies in the middle and at the bottom. So we do see that the bottom of the pyramid is actually growing much faster than the top. The top is, I think last year grew like, I don't know, Chantel, by the way, you probably have a better number than I do, but it's definitely single digits, maybe like 3 to 5% last year or something. The bottom of the pyramid is, getting close to double-digit growth. And the reason for that is because you have a ton of new entrants. And when you are a smaller company, like you, oftentimes a lot of our customers are seeing like 100 to 100% growth every year. And the biggest reason for that, I think, is the specialization. And that's, by the way, what we also saw when we surveyed the buyers of consulting services. A lot of them say, look, I will hire a brand name consulting company if I need to motivate a political decision, absolutely. But if I actually need a niche expertise and very tactical advice, I will go and hire a boutique consulting company that does specifically this type of thing, right? So they see that specialization is more efficient, and usually it's associated with actually less less money, more affordable pricing, if you wish. And so that's what we are seeing. And then if you look at like more kind of the pathways in which there are new entrants in the consulting industry. Like my favorite anecdote about this is this Berkeley professor. So she's at the top of her field, and she has a consultancy on the side. But historically, she was able to consult only one client at a time because there is a lot of overhead to do a ton of things, right? Um, but now I'm like, okay, what if we were to automate this process for you? What if we were to give you this tool? What if you don't have to ever create a new slide in your career ever again, etc.? And she's like, oh, I'll probably be able to take 2, maybe 3 clients at the same time. And the beauty of that is that, yes, first of all, it's more financially, attractive to her, but more importantly, because she's at the top of her field and she's a very rare expert, her expertise is now available to broader array of clients within the same unit of time. And so I think that's kind of on a micro level what's going to happen to the industry in the years to come.
And your closing message for firms, smaller firms, mid-sized firms, what would you tell them about their AI strategy? Because I know a lot of firms, even in India, they're doing absolutely well, team of 300, 400, 500, but they believe AI cannot touch them.
Yeah, to me, again, like I would have to. I'm not going to say I fully agree, but I understand where these people are coming from. Yes, it's hard to say that the GPT that's hallucinating so much is going to be able to produce the type of outputs, that they are able to produce. And I absolutely agree with that. I do think that we are entering this period of, like in the history of chess, and sorry for put a human and you put a very capable machine together and you have basically unbeatable, unit. And so to those people who are skeptical about AI, my biggest advice would be, no, take AI as your biggest ally, become a power user, make sure that you're using the best, bleeding tech that you can do. And this is only going to secure your position as a standalone consultant, as an outstanding consultant, I want to say.
Cool. Ali, thank you so much, for helping us understand about this industry, about what you guys are doing and the impact AI will have, on consulting.